Welcome back to Educational Warfare. I'm Dr. Jordan Lauer here with my partner, Dr. Ryan Jackson. Big shout out to our producer, Tommy Ruth, and our director, Matt Paff. We're recording here at beautiful Cadet Toys and Comics. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest debates in modern education. Artificial intelligence versus traditional teaching models. Can AI revolutionize learning, or is it just a gimmick threatening real education? But first, some program reminders. Remember to follow us on X at EDU Warfare, on Blue Sky at drlauer.bsky.social. And if you follow, you can also follow Dr. Jackson on X at RyanBJackson1 and on Instagram at Underdogs Advocate. And now you can watch our full video episodes on YouTube and on Spotify. Just search our YouTube channel at Educational Warfare. Please subscribe to the page so you don't miss any of our content. And of course, help us grow the show and tell a friend or coworker or anybody you think would find it interesting so they can join the fight as well. We appreciate all your support. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. You know, I asked AI to help co-host, but it said, sorry, I can analyze data and I can write an essay in 0.3 seconds, but even I can't keep up with the educational brilliance of Dr. Ryan Jackson. So please welcome the real deal, educator, innovator, and the only guy who can out-teach a chatbot, Dr. Ryan Jackson. What's up, Ryan?
Man, I appreciate that introduction. You know, I will follow that with, you're always supposed to remember that everything AI produces is not true.
This is true.
So let's make sure that we
got to check it.
Yeah,
fact check. I was afraid to put myself in there, see what it would say. So yeah, I didn't. Just put you in there.
You get all truth then.
Right. So we're talking about AI today and how it's affecting. It's something everybody's thinking about. It is an interesting and thought-provoking thing. Like, what is it? Is it a tool? Is it a replacement? Is it something to fear? That's what we're talking about. What exactly is AI? How can it affect education? And how can it affect our lives? Not only for teachers. This is something everybody's wondering because it's kind of just popped on the scene. It's just there was talked about. There was a couple programs that used it, and now it's everything. We got Matthew McConaughey doing commercials about AI assistants to like make your dinner reservations. Mm-hmm. Those commercials, and so it's just kind of all of a sudden went into everything. Yeah. So we're using it. It's part of our lives, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, a lot of wondering about what it can do, where it's going to go. So it's a really important, a really topical issue to talk about today. So I'm really excited to get into it and just hopefully that we can give a little knowledge or go a little deep into it and then kind of go back and forth on what does it mean for education and what can we do with it and how can teachers start to use it instead of just, we're trying today to make sure teachers are proactive with it. Don't just sit back and all of a sudden, boom, you have to how can you grab it? How can you manipulate it and use it possibly or know the things you shouldn't do with it? That way we're not just all of a sudden here's what you're doing with it and we're just learning. So that's our goal is just help everybody understand.
A little bit of better understanding about this really potentially scary thing known as AI. Yeah, let's dig into it.
Absolutely.
Let's cover some truths.
Let's pod. All right, so the first thing we're talking about is it a friend or a foe, right? Let's dig into it. Let's get into what we're talking about. So there are AI powered tools. For example, the most famous one is ChatGPT. Right. There's also, Khan Academy has a new AI tutor we're talk about, and there's adaptive learning software in classrooms. And what do I mean by adaptive learning? Is basically what it does. It uses algorithms and artificial intelligence, which we call AI, to basically personalize learning experiences for each individual student or person, and it can actually adjust the pace, the content, and what you're doing with instruction based on those students or people's performance, okay? Mm-hmm. So it's customized learning paths and feedback, basically helping students learn. So that's what we mean by adaptive learning. And that's kind of where it's going in the educational field. And that's kind of what ChatGPT already does is it kind of adapts and learns and polls. So that's the biggest thing. Khan Academy, like I said, their AI-driven learning system, it personalizes it. It's actually being used. So this is not as much as you think AI is new, Khan Academy is already in 500 different school districts, according to Cal Berkeley, and 68.2 thousand students use the system, according to Khan Academy's own annual report. So this is not something new. Districts are jumping on this, and pretty large numbers.
I think the newest bit is just the general public's ability to interact, manipulate some to a degree. That piece is what's really new. But, in terms of the algorithm and what social media has been using, YouTube's been using for a very long time, and AI has been with us for quite some time.
And I think the big thing here, what makes it a foe, right? If this was just a almost something that was like, hey, this is for teachers, or hey, this is for businesses. I think a lot of people are like, yes, that's great. I think what makes it a foe is that it is open to everybody. So you have students using this, not in the programs we're talking about, but using it for other things, using it to complete assignments, using it to write essays. And that's where it gets this faux idea of like, teachers always think of, oh no, cheating, oh no, plagiarism. You know, and I think that's what we is the biggest fear for teachers. But there are positive things. We're talking today even about how to make it your friend, about how to adapt it for your classroom. You know, and talking about, you know, just any teacher out there, like, what's he talking about with this Khan Academy? So their new AI tool is called Camingo. And basically, it can do way more than you'd honestly think. I was looking into this. One of the things it does is it writes with students, not for them. So the Khan Academy one, you can put in stuff, but it gives prompts to students to basically help them think more deeply about what they're reading or encountering, and to explain their thinking. So it's kind of sitting there, and it's like, hey, will you write me an essay? Well, and then it answers back, well, this is the prompt. What do you think would be a good way to, and they can actually chat with it and kind of work out their thoughts, which is a really cool thing. Because if you're sitting there, like, let's put ourselves in the student shoes. You're sitting there and I say, write this essay or write this short answer, you know, not even a full-blown essay, but just this, like, I expect a paragraph back or 2 paragraphs. You know, if you're a kid and you kind of have a little bit of anxiety about that, you're sitting there at your computer, or even with just sitting there at the computer, just staring at that cursor blink, and nothing's coming to your head. This type of program, you can like chat with, like, I'm confused about how to start it, and it'll go like, oh, well, the prompt says this, so think of something, and so it like just helps guide their thoughts.
Spurs idea generation, can keep you on track, you know, in terms of, are you on topic?
Right.
You know, a lot of times, especially young writers, you just jump into a prompt because I can't think of anything.
Right.
I'm just gonna
start writing.
Man,
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Just yeah, and I like that. And I like that it one of the things I've seen, and it's not just Camingo, I've talked about this in other episodes that I've used before, is classcompanion.com, which is kind of this very similar thing. You put the prompt in and you can kind of tell it what to do, and the students get 3 chances to answer like these short answer questions. And it'll like, they type in the first one and it'll pop up and go, you're on the right track, but remember to think of or go deeper. I love that it always tells students to go deeper, because that's one thing that they don't think about. They think that they just like, and this is what happened, and they're done. And it's like, no, well, you got to explain why that matters, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that really helps it. And, you know, a positive, right? We're talking about, is a friend or foe. One of the things these type of systems can be for teachers as a positive is it can do what you just can't, in that, like, it is hard to walk around 25 kids and say that, go deeper, like read each one and go deeper. You know, it would take the whole class period to get through everybody. And now it's like, it's giving that prompt you would give, but you don't have to walk around and do it to each kid. You can kind of like, how's it going? You know, you can do a spot check on some kids and know that it's doing that. So it's a really good thing.
You know, my wonder on that, man, anybody that's been affiliated or been around a credit recovery program, you know, these are typically taking place at high school levels. But these are classes, you know, that have one teacher in them, and you're going to have, you know, at times anywhere from 10 to 30 kids in there, all trying to recover various unique credits that are due to them. Right, so you're going to have everybody from Algebra 1 to U.S. World History all in this class. And for the most part, I mean, it is self-directed, you know, AI-type learning with one instructor back there unlocking just something for you, or just monitoring, really. And it just feels like that, man. That's why, to me, to a degree, it just doesn't feel that new. Because even those credit recovery programs, self-directed, tutorial-ish. Oh, you missed that one. Little wizard will pop up.
Right.
May want to think about that again. I mean, just, man, I don't know, man. What's new, man?
Yeah, I mean, and so the interesting thing, there's a really neat connection to this that was kind of almost a good allegory for what this could be. There's a science fiction book by Neil Stephenson. It's called A Young Lady's Illustrated Primer. And basically in this book, she's a pauper. She's poor in this kind of society, a futuristic, and obviously being poor, there's no way to get up that, but she finds this device that basically teaches her anything she wants. Like she put in that at one point, she even learns a little martial arts, but she becomes, through this device, it basically makes her go from a pauper to an aristocrat. Like it's almost like Count of Monte Cristo.
What year is this written?
Yeah, I honestly do not know the year. I feel that it was written in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's basically, it's kind of like that, you know, and like in Count of Monte Cristo, he works on a ship, goes to prison. he meets this old priest, he calls him, and basically, since they're in the prison for 13 years, throughout those 13 years, he learns how to read, write, do math, how to sword fight, knife fight, how to be a gentleman. And he escapes, and boom, he enters, and he also finds a treasure, which helps. Money does help. And he basically becomes an aristocrat to lay out his revenge. That's kind of like this, but, the allegory for AI is that, can it be that device? It's not this one device you find, but can it push people forward? Can it individualize learning that much to where we're really taking a step forward? And that's what some of these programs really do. Like there are personal learning claims for students, individualized. One of the most promising applications of AI in education is the ability to tailor learning individually to students, right? That's, when you're in front of a class, we try to differentiate as much as possible, but we can go around, but sometimes it's just, they're not getting it. And you can sit there. And what this does is you could give that same thing, but AI can tailor it. Like that Camingo program, they said eventually it's going to learn students' histories the more they work with it. And it'll literally do things like, if you're not getting it, like one student claimed they were reading The Great Gatsby, and the student just wasn't really understanding what happened. So the AI made basically a version of Gatsby to talk to. So it became a chatbot, and it was it took the book and basically said, I'm Gatsby, ask me a question. So the kid could literally ask from the book, like he was talking to the character, and that made him understand it better. So it's like a really interesting thing. It's fascinating. So those are some of the good stuff. So, the pros, while we're talking about being friend or foe, let's go into the pros of AI. So what we just talked about, it can make for teachers, it can make customized lesson plans. The best thing I think it does is it automates administrative tasks, like grading, making this type of thing, just doing those things that used to take us 10, 15, 20 minutes. Now it's done in 0.3 seconds, like I said at the start of the show, which just gives you that time, right? It also can assess student performance and suggest topics, which is one of the nicest things. Like, hey, if you're not using AI, you can jump on it.
I wonder on that, because you're right. It just absolutely does save you a ton of time. And it takes me back to, like I'm talking mid-2000s, man, 2008, later 2008, 2009. I'm a new teacher, and I can just remember having to cut my teeth on lesson plans every Sunday, like sitting in my bed, it felt like, the majority of the day watching football and crafting lesson plans.
Yep.
And we taught on block schedule back then, 4x4 blocks. So I had 3 classes, 90 minutes, and I saw those kids all year. So I'm gory details here because you're having to plan like that. 90-minute classes, inner city high school, and I'm just painstakingly figuring this out. All right, opening hook, 10 minutes. This,
right.
Just going through that. The case in point, if you no longer have to do that effort, that struggle.
Right.
I don't know. I could see that as a slippery slope too.
It really is, because you can, and like you said, I've done the same thing, 90-minute classes. And if you're at a school with, you're at an inner city school, or, you can't have blank spots. You can't be like, oh, I'll do this, and like, oh, well, there's 20 minutes with nothing to do. That doesn't work. They've already been in class with you 70 minutes.
But as a guy who's been focused a lot these days on process, not just outcomes, but process, and what process can do for you mentally,
right?
Physically. I mean, all the things that process can do, not just outcomes. When we eliminate process,
right?
I'm just real curious about downstream.
Yeah, and that actually leads into one of the negatives of it, right? So, and I totally get that, because it is a slippery slope. Because at first, like what AI can do, like you said, we're making this. You open a Word document, it's just like that student, and the cursor's blinking. You're like, okay, got to make a lesson for this 90 minutes. So you're sitting, you're thinking of all the opening, closing, hook, all that stuff, the activity, the assessments. You can type that into a chat or to an AI system, and it'll make that outline. It'll even fill in some spots, and then you can add, subtract. But that can get slippery, because it's almost it is almost a results thing. Like you said, that takes away that process. If that first time you do it, or second time, it's really good, and you're like, you scroll through it and you're like, I don't know if I have to change anything on this. You get into that, where you're stopping that really deep dive. Because sometimes when you're doing that, it's annoying, but by digging in, you're really coming up with some good stuff. Where if that does it, you could sit at surface level. It's just like, well, it's done. Yeah.
But you and I are also a bit smart enough to know that humans, like water, we're 70% water, right?
Yeah.
We take the path of least resistance,
Yeah.
typically. So I like your point there. Once we experience this is great.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything. That may become our norm.
Yeah.
Going forward.
100%.
And from there on, it's just...
And can quality drop because you're not putting
What can you
in...
do for me? What can you generate for me? Now I'm not looking at it anymore. Now I've just got it. Now process is almost gone. It's just outcome.
Yep.
An outcome that we earn through no effort. And I think that's sort of the scary threshold for a lot of people, or for just people who think like that. Once we remove effort out of process, what are the downstream effects of that?
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because like as I was going through the process of writing my book, right, like the 2 backpacks, Understand Teens What They Carry, hopefully it's coming out this June. We'll get an announcement once everything's finalized and everything. It's coming soon though, super excited. But as I'm sending it out to publish and stuff, a lot of the publishers have a little checkbox when you're like filling out the initial form about the basics of the book, so they can see if they want to contact you. It says, was this written with AI or with AI help? I didn't even think of that because I didn't want, but I couldn't imagine, like, you think of that even like a book, like, hey, I'm having trouble writing this chapter, you feed it the other chapters, like where it could go, and it could spit out a full chapter. And then it's like, are we really getting that human element? And that's what's scary. And again, publishers are worried about that because they don't want to publish books from an author that like didn't really do it, so and how does it affect that? And that's what you're saying. So one of the negatives that when we get back to students, so take that process and now let's go with a fear of teachers and of stakeholders about AI in school. It could kill or weaken critical thinking, by using that, again, by not needing to kind of do that mental workout of like, what can I say here? By just kind of having it do it, like, does that just kind of make us stop thinking critically? And it just kind of does it for us. So I really, and this is from a study from MIT, found that students using AI to write essays actually performed worse later in deep reasoning tasks. So now you're seeing that like they're not thinking, so it made me dive into this. I was like, okay, we always say this word, it is a big buzzword, critical thinking, education, critical thinking, but do we really understand critical thinking? So I kind of dove into it. So what is critical thinking? According to Daniel Willingham, who's a cognitive scientist, he has come up with what he calls a commonsensical view, right? So kind of made up word there, but his definition. So critical thinking is this. It's first novel, right? We use that word a lot in the show, especially when we're talking about teenagers. It's not a direct repetition of something you've learned before. So it has to be like something fresh, using facts, but just yours. It's self-directed. So not just repeating steps you've been given. Like you are kind of making the thing, like the task. You're not just like, do this. And the third and final one is it's effective. Following patterns that are likely to yield useful conclusions. So that's critical thinking. But here's the problem that as I was diving into this, the fascinating thing about critical thinking. We human beings have a problem with this, that like critical thinking works best in the field you're working in. So it's actually what we found is it's really hard to transfer it, because even though humans know that we've solved, I mean, if you really think about it, you strip everything away, most problems in any type of area are the same problem, right? Or same like in these categories. It's just a different thing. But humans really struggle with, we can't look past the surface level. Like for example, in this MIT study, they basically gave the same problem with they basically kind of gave these two problems. One was like a student needing to do this, and the other one was using a military tactics, right? So they were like, hey, this is a military thing. How do we have the least amount of casualties? And then they had a science teacher like, hey, how do we were to use this laser on something, but if we concentrate it too much, it'll basically break, right? So they told the students, hey, what you're going to do with the laser is you're going to actually like not just have one beam, but have several beams. Spread out your focus. That way it doesn't melt what you're doing. That same problem is the exact answer to the military strategy. How do we attack this area without having the most amount of, or with the least amount of casualties? You spread out your forces. You don't all come through the front door, 5 guys through the front door, 5 guys back door, sides, roof. But the students couldn't see that exact same problem. It's the same question. How do we keep damage from happening by going this one way? And the answer is spread it out, but they couldn't do that. And that's what we have problems doing, is looking past the surface. They couldn't equate laser and soldiers. That's really the same problem. So, and that's a really interesting thing. So can AI weaken that? Then that's the thing. Can it really weaken it if we already have problems, even if we're being told what the issue is and we can't see past that surface level? So that's that's a super interesting thing, and that's what all teachers worry about is like, oh, if they copy this essay or if they just have it write their essay, are they going to know how to do these things? And can it weaken critical thinking? So, AI could be like a superpower for education, right? It could adapt to each student, provides instant feedback. It never gets tired, so that's a positive of it. But then there is this weakening of critical thinking, or like you said, students stop doing the process. When you can type in, hey, here's my physics homework.
Yeah, I think we're trying to give it this silver lining, or we'll just call it wishful thinking, which is sort of what you've explained earlier, that well, when you engage with it the right way, meaning you're the one driving it and you're using the feedback just to adjust, your own driving.
Right.
That's that silver lining piece. That's the wishful thinking. It's how I'm using the AI versus I'm just letting the AI do the driving,
right,
and I'm really a passenger in this. And then it's kind of up to me to accept or reject whichever direction the driver's taking me in. So it's very much more kind of Uber-esque in that way. And I think from a gig economy standpoint and just understanding people, not just young people, but people and our path of least resistance that most of us are going to take, compound that with when you don't put effort into something, you don't experience nearly as much joy. We're not even getting to the friction being the inflection point for learning. None of that yet. We're just on this, hey, and this is the slippery slope, and this is the threshold that I think we've just crossed, which is we're now giving AI agency for us. And, so we've moved past this fun bit of interface of prompting it to ask it questions, novelty, to now I'm actually giving you machine, you AI, agency, ownership over what I should be doing. And we do it under this guise of efficiency, multitasking. But for the lion's share of us, for the majority of people who are going to take the path of least resistance,
very human,
it's hard to see it as a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what teachers worry about, like with students, is that you are, like, if you're given agency to do everything, like, how do we even, now, as much as it can take away from or take a task away from teachers, when you're talking about students using it, it can actually add, because now you have to like double, triple check everything. Students use devices for most of the stuff in school. Like, you have to now go in and make sure that they're not on other tabs.
That's a great point. You've almost debunked, that particular argument. It's going to save you some time, but it also adds to your time.
Right.
And I'm thinking of my wife here, 19-year teaching veteran, teaches junior level English 3. So you have to go through your AI checkers.
Yep.
Oh, and that's painstaking.
It is, yeah.
So where you're saving, you're also adding, and I'd be curious what that net effect.
Yeah, because in the past, when you're worried about, we go in from paper to where it's just like as you're grading an essay or grading some assignment on paper, your biggest fear is that they maybe had like something, like they pre-wrote something, or that they had a assistant paper like hidden somewhere. They're kind of like taking some ideas off it. But your biggest worry is like, oh, I'm going to read this. Oh, that's awful. You know what I mean? Like, I'm graded, they missed the mark, whatever. And then you go to, and then we went to like devices before AI, and your biggest thing was them copy and pasting. And that's like, and students, if you're any students that listen to this, we talk to you every day. So if when you come up, you're like, I had a great time this weekend, my mom and I went to this place, and we know how you talk. And then all of a sudden we read your essay, and it's like, the plight of females in the Eastern Hemisphere is quite deplorable since the rise of Mao and his communist regime. Right. As a teacher, you're like, who is this person? Like, we know you copy and pasted. But now, like, these AI systems can literally write as if, like, you can put in, hey, write an essay about this, like a B student who's 14 years old, and you can even say in Middle Tennessee, and it'll throw like colloquialisms in there.
You can even give it a sample of your own writing. Write a quick terrible paragraph of your own. This is how I write.
Yeah,
and you mirror it. There are these kind of things you can do, and there's a creativity in that. There is this, I guess, again, if we're looking for silver linings, man, there is some type of intellect that goes. Now you're just trying to skirt the hard work by then engaging with the novel work, which is telling your bot how to do what you want it to do. So I see some sizzle there, but I still just feel like for the lion's share of people, it's just going to be detrimental to the brain as a working muscle, effort and outcome, and what that can mean, giving a machine agency to do our menial tasks that then turn into doing more and more much higher intellect tasks. So Pandora's box for sure. Yeah, man, I'm not sold on it yet.
I mean, it's scary. So looking into, now we talked friend or foe. We gave some positives, some negatives, but here's the big fear for everybody out there listening. Can AI replace teachers? That is, I think, in the back of everybody's mind, because you're seeing the more and more happen. Like, hey, do this. Like, are we getting to a point to where it's going to be, you could get kids in a room of 50 with one person just making sure they behave. And AI's, like you said, almost like the credit recovery. They're going through a lesson. They're doing this, right? And that's everybody's fear. Like, do I become extendable? Because this can say, no, dig deeper. Or this can even, it can pull up a fact maybe quicker than I can. I'd be like, oh, Alfred the Great in 900 did this. And I may not even think to tell the kid yet, to prompt him. So it's like, oh, it's kind of doing a better job than I am, and that's the fear. So, it can, so what we talked about, it can grade papers. It can provide tutoring, which I think is probably its best asset now. It can even simulate discussions, but can it replace that human connection? Everything I've looked into, dove into this, read like 15 articles because I want to make sure. The short answer is no, right? Connection, right, is that one area where AI is right now falls behind. It lacks that human touch that more often most people believe is needed when dealing with students. So some of the cons for it: lack of emotional intelligence and empathy, right? Ethical concerns, and we'll go into that more. Some interesting stories about that. Limited ability to foster creativity.
Man, it's just to interject really quickly, man. It's funny to hear that lack of empathy piece. Have you ever punched in your ChatGPT that you're having a bad day?
No.
Dude, it's like the kindest response that you will get on the planet. Are you, man? Tell me more. Hey, let's make this better. What can we do? I'm just saying, I've got to interject there because, and it's reminding me of my neighbor, and he shares this with me recently. He's got 3 teenage daughters, a couple of years apart. And he's talking about his youngest daughter. And he explains to me that he sees, this is his kind of vision casting here, he sees this future where young people feel isolated, disconnected from, ostracized by their aging parents.
Okay.
Right? They're out of touch. They don't get it. But my AI understands me. Okay, so you flash forward for a couple of years. Those kids have now grown up. Those kids are now voting age. Those kids are now players making things happen. And they are so connected. And I'm going to use the word connected because like Tony Robbins, man, he says connections are the crumbs of love. They feel this connection to their AI. So much so, they want their AI to have rights.
Yeah.
Because they feel that strong connection.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Young people, and that bit right there.
Yeah.
We're already becoming more disconnected from IRL, right? So I'm living here with my bot.
Yep.
It's making me all the things I can tell it that I can't tell my parents.
Yeah.
All the things that it says to me that my parents would never say to me, because everything is echo chamber. Everything is affirmation.
Right. If you feed it enough, it'll give back what you want. Like when you talk, I don't know if you know this or not, but on Snapchat, you can make an AI friend. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, so on Snapchat, you can literally go in and it gives, I can't remember what the initial name of it is, but it's like a blue person, but you can adjust the way it looks, give it a name, and you can snap it. Like send it a picture and it'll
so you can just have a streak going with your virtual bot.
And you can sit there on it and be like, hey, whatever you name it, I'm going to name mine Tobias. So Tobias, hey, my girlfriend broke up with me today. Help me through this. And it's and it'll come up man, that really stinks. But she's not that good for you. I notice you've been snapping this person. Maybe try that. It's literally like talking to a friend where, like you said, you can start to pull away. Nobody understands me except my AI because it is you. It's a reflection of you. It is because basically it's read everything you've done, read everything you've said, and it just kind of is going off your interest. So it is kind of like a perfectly crafted best friend, or even like a brother or sister. it thinks like you. So that is kind of scary. And I totally get with you, like type that in about empathy, and I think for this, it's like in education where, it'll pull up facts and stuff. But like when a kid asks me something, I can be like, well, think about like how this would make you feel.
Now I'm going to take you maybe one layer deeper, but here's what it's making me think of. Is in acting, I love films, man, love movies, and when I think of great actors, man, people like Edward Norton, I mean of that ilk, just Daniel Day-Lewis types, people of this ilk, you're going to hear them talk about impersonation as like this mirror reflection, but that's not acting, right? Just replication. It's got to be deeper than that. So I'm going back to our empathy point here. The AI may be mirroring what that empathy is, but it can't be empathy, man.
Right.
Is that not a human characteristic trait? But yet it is mirroring. So, man, I go back to like, just artificial sweeteners, man, is what's popping into my mind. Like it's going to
sweet and low.
It's going to convince, saccharin. I mean, it's sucralose. It's going to convince the brain even. The gut microbiome. Like it's thinking this is sugar, but it's not. It's thinking this is empathy.
Yeah.
And when you take this past the least resistance, man, that looks and smells just like empathy, man. This thing loves me.
Absolutely, yeah. It's there for me.
Loves me.
Yeah, and I think one thing. So like teachers, like it. You are needed. I always say that teaching is a profession of the soul. So, it's love, it's stuff. And one thing, like, you're all right. It can mimic empathy and kind of like talk you through it. But you also have to have the awareness to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, not just asking it the question. Whereas like a teacher, the one thing that AI can't replace is, your kids, right? So I can tell from across the room when a kid's struggling. A normal kid, like I can just tell by their body language, the way they're typing, the way they're looking around. They're teenagers, so most likely they're going like type. They're making some audible noise that they're frustrated. Where AI can't hear that. It can't can't be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Where I can walk over, hey, what's up? I'm just really struggling with this. Okay. So where like AI, you can type in the prompt and it might give you answers, and you're just trying to write off that. Unless you type in, I'm struggling with this, and have that awareness that it'll do that. It won't help. It'll just fact. Where we can come in and say, and then I can say, okay, you're struggling with this, but I can also ask this one question that AI really can't. Something else going on? I can take that human moment where, that's the thing that makes teaching beautiful, is that we're trying to give a lesson, we're trying to give knowledge, but we at any moment can see it and say, pause on that. What's going on? How you feeling? Come out in the hall with me for a second. And just like, you can get like those deeper things. Done that many times in my career. And, at first when you ask, you're like, oh, they're going to kind of tell me something superficial. The amount of deep things sometimes students like tell you that they're feeling will just blow your mind, that they can have those feelings with that lack of life experience. And you're like, whoa. And you talk them through it, and maybe you help a little bit, and they go in and they're like, whew, where it can't do that because, we teachers do more than deliver lessons. Like I said, we mentor, we motivate, and we create emotional connection. That's what AI right now can't really replicate. A Stanford study found that students learn best when they have real face-to-face interaction with teachers. At first, they were looking at like online courses, but then they added in AI, and they found that they really learn best when when there's a human there to talk with it through them. So we're not expendable yet. Like learning is still an emotional thing, and I think AI is a symbol of our fear. And Carl Jung said that ideas don't move human beings; symbols move human beings. When you have a symbol for an idea, that's when it becomes powerful. You look at religions, you look at, the American flag is a symbol. It can make people do things. It can either make super patriotism or just a good feeling, or some people, they can hate a certain flag. Like symbols do that. So the question is AI a symbol for our innate fears that that we could be replaced? Like everybody always has. That's always a very human thing. Like I'm going to become expendable. And so that's what's doing. So other countries are trying this though, so it's not just like America that's dealing with this. A lot of countries are just grabbing this by the reins and really trying it. Like Finland, which is known for its education system, banned AI in early education to help kids develop foundational skills first, and I think that's really smart. Like, don't let AI in until a certain point. And then some on the other end, like there's a college professor who is literally, he makes his students write his essays with AI, but his caveat is, since you're using AI, I expect it to be perfect. You better go through there and look up every fact, write it, add to it. Don't just turn it in, which is a really interesting take. Like, let it craft the idea, but then you're still doing that critical thinking to check it. It's so just like test correction.
Yeah, and now you're measuring other things, something else.
Yeah.
Right? You're measuring their ability to be a craftsman with the AI.
Yeah, and they're still using the content.
And to me, that's a different standard, though, man.
Yeah, it's scary. I could not do it.
But it's cool. It's cool in terms of someone who's accepting the fate, like early on. You're going to get those people who just dive in early. Like, there's no beating this. Whether you said it consciously or subconsciously. I mean, you used the word yet. You said we're not.
Yeah, it's always in the back of my head.
So I took that as that point's probably coming, because most people understand, especially when you've been in education and you're just around human beings all the time, that most of us are going to just gravitate towards this. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to use. Again, the lion's share of people.
Yep.
So we're seeing what's coming, and I think that's kind of the the space there is like not yet. And guys like that professor, or people like that professor, who are saying, okay, since we know this is coming anyway, here's how I want you to do it.
Yeah.
This is what I think is going to be the optimized version of learning now, using something like this.
Yeah, instead of fighting it, like, no, use it. Here you go. Now, and
cool, but I want you to be a craftsman at it. Like,
does
you have
that
to
and
be
that
amazing at it.
And does that also take, do students, once they think that it's a cheat code, once they realize, we're using it, it's not a cheat code, does it take that power from it? And then now they will start to think about it
it's just a tool now.
Yeah, instead of just, and I think that's a good way, like, by sometimes when something we fear or something, we're like, I don't want them to cheat, so I'm not even going to mention AI because I don't want to put it in their heads.
Where I think we're going to struggle with that is we were never able to crack that code with phones.
Yeah.
When phones first came out, it was BYOT, bring your own technology. I mean, there was so much excitement
Used
about
for
that.
research.
Bring the phones in, computers in your pocket. Don't be afraid of these devices. Now, almost unequivocally, it's districts saying the phones have to go in that pocket over there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of districts.
We've learned that they just cannot manage that kind of, So I'm thinking of AI in that way as well.
Yeah,
is like at the end of it,
the problems with phones when we started BYOT is like we literally were like, oh, this will be great for research, and that was before a lot of the social media was really up and running.
Yeah, but we're still on the infancy of this.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
so man.
That's what I'm saying.
Deep fakes are real now, but
that's scary too.
It's just exponentially our existential crisis is increasing by the day.
And that's what so a lot of countries are starting. America's a little behind on this. Like, we're kind of like just what are we going to do? We have like Khan Academy, but we haven't really. Our government hasn't said, hey, this is what we're going to do with AI. We most recently the Department of Education kind of put out a primer about what they want to do, but literally. The Department of Education might not be around, is not going to be around very longer. So where's that going to go? But like countries like, for example, you have South Korea has implemented AI-based systems to adapt homework and assignments based on students' educational levels. So when the teacher literally, they have the system that they're about to give homework. I'm going to use history because I teach history. I'm teaching a scientific revolution. So I'm going to say, hey, I want them to know Copernicus and Kepler, what they did, blah, blah. They don't just make something and give it to the kids. They put that into the AI, and then because AI's learned the kids, it pops out what each kid needs. Like, if you're going to do, like, I'm just saying, a worksheet, I know they're evil, but like if you're going to pass out a worksheet, it would make a worksheet like, this is Tommy's worksheet, this is Ryan's worksheet, and it's adaptive and different, which is interesting. Singapore had its Smart Nation strategy, which is an AI-enabled companion that provides customized feedback and motivation to students. Automated grading and machine learning systems, basically how each student learns or responds to classroom materials and activities. So it's kind of like, it's going on the emotional side of it. We talked about, like, hey, it'll literally ask you, we did this today, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you learn well with that? And if they say yes, then it kind of adapts and like sends feedback to the teacher. So that's really interesting. Georgia Tech created an AI teacher assistant. It's called Jill Watson. It's running IBM's Watson system. And students, so basically what it did for online classes at Georgia Tech, instead of like typing, hey, like I'm a little confused by this, and then waiting for your professor to answer, and they have, online class, 500 kids, Jill Watson answers for you. It takes care of the frequently asked questions. And the students were like, I got feedback instantly, which is nice. So now you're not waiting, getting that stress.
Yeah.
Finland has Cland, which Cland is a learning platform, tracks student progress. So you're seeing a lot of like tracking student progress and using this. But basically, when we're talking about this, we have to also look into one of the problems with AI. It's bias, privacy, and data dilemma. Because that's a big thing. Like schools are trying to protect data, student data, and AI only works if you give it data. Like you got to know, you can't get any of this customized stuff. If I'm not feeding kids tests, even emotional things. Could that be dangerous? Sometimes some of the mistakes it makes, it's not perfect. Sometimes it puts words, names, and ideas together that appear to make sense, but actually don't if you read it closely. So like, for example, it can say when you're discussing the record for crossing the English Channel, and it says, this person set the record for crossing the English Channel on foot. So if like you don't catch that, like you're like, oh, cool, here's the person who did it. When it says on foot, did it screw up? Did it just add on foot, or is that the wrong person? Because obviously you can't run across water, So, or it can also, or on why mayonnaise is a racist condiment. Okay, because AI systems react to what they're fed.
So we know that it's still a bit in its infancy.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot to be concerned about. It's not a panacea quite yet. I think back to that question, it's not replacing teachers yet.
Yeah.
And that yet is a bit nebulous there. That could be 50 years. It could be 5.
Yeah.
We just don't know. Things that I fall back on in terms of comfort and security. Okay, I'm thinking of these schools with 2,500 kids in them. I mean, you have to have people to manage that volume of students. I just don't see it yet replacing the machine, the system, the industrial complex we have yet. Education, public ed is designed to keep the workforce at work.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. Yep. COVID taught us that.
Let parents go to work.
COVID taught us that. So until they figure out what you do with the lion's share of kids during the workday, we're good.
Right.
I mean, I really believe it's just that easy right now to say we're good. We do need to figure out, since AI is not going away, and it's going to have incredible, advantages and impacts on, I believe, healthcare, medicine, research, all of those pieces. So I'm excited for it. I am, man. But I'm just not terrified yet that it's replacing all of us in public schools.
Yeah. And as it's being integrated more, we have to worry about this. You want to know something that, I don't know why, it kind of like, not terrible, it kind of like gave me a little spine tingle. You know what it's called when an AI system kind of screws up or kind of makes something up, like the English,
What's that?
They're called hallucinations.
Nice.
Like AI hallucinations. Kind of just, I was like, ooh, that's weird. That makes it seem like it's too, like it's evolving.
My buddy put it to me a certain way. He's like, AI is great, man. You just have to understand that it's like you've been put in a 2-person team, okay, with the most brilliant 3-year-old you've ever met.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to manage and work with it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah. That's where it's about at. 3 to 5, as I've read, that's where it's like age is at. Like it understands
So you've got to
things.
just keep telling it, no, buddy.
And that's
man.
And that's where we
don't
get
put
to,
the hand coming out of the forehead.
Right,
That's not what I want.
Humans have 5 fingers, not 7.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's one of the things too, is that also because it is not a person who can like think like this is wrong. Again, the scary thing about it is it adapts its answers from what it's fed. So like if you get certain things, like for example, they were using an AI system in the medical field in hospitals to help like basically streamline these administrative tasks. Like where should this person go next? We're feeding you all of their medical info, help us basically like triage them. Like, should this person go see a cardiologist, all that. And it basically found out that because they gave it old medical records, and within those old medical records, minorities were often like not treated the same because they were older, and some of the doctors, depending where they're at, the AI system started being biased. Like, oh, they're fine. Like just put them here, when like a human looked over and like, no, they need to go up. Like we need to be in pre-op, and like, so that's a scary thing of like what you feed it, right? Like you could have biases, you could have, negative things, and like could you change history? You know, like the way history is, you feed it enough of an updated version of history, now it's spitting out that like
this is what happened.
Thomas Jefferson never owned slaves. You know, don't think that. You know, now you're so like that's a scary thing.
That's where you went, man, with that one.
I know. That's what like I mean, history. So some of the stuff we're talking about, whitewashing stuff, like you know, like some people are like, hey, so it's like, and that's the scary thing is you don't want that being put out because you know, again, we are. You know, that's why every authoritarian regime, the first thing they do is take away books, take away the news because they don't want us.
But, you know, like, everything we're saying right now, you know, my minus your Thomas Jefferson gem there is
some people are thinking
is kind of the underbelly of that is scary, man.
Yeah,
I mean, so we're sort of answering the question that it's ominous, it's you know it's complicated because there's just outright benefits and excitement mixed into it and progress and advancement and the future and sci-fi. I mean, all of those things that we're attracted to, we're fascinated by.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like there's this unspoken thing, even between us right here, that we know it's probably going to be our undoing.
Right. Like I'm like literally.
And we're talking about it. And there's that funny thing. I can never remember this when I want to reference it. But it's that thing where like, people are staring at something and they can't believe to the degree of what they're seeing that they'll actually let it overtake them. It's like when you're watching a volcano like erupt and you just freeze. You can't believe I'm watching this and seeing it into like it's about to get you.
Yeah, people are like, that's lava coming this way.
We're seeing this and we're talking about it. We're even laughing about it in jest.
Yeah.
And again, it's to me like doctors smoking in the birth room. You know, it's like we'll look back on that and just believe like, man, can you believe it? Like we did not do anything to try to stop them.
Right. Well, I'm terrified. You know, we're recording this. This is going to go on the internet. AI at some point is going to eat it. And so I am 100% sure because we're maybe talking bad about it or trying to educate about it. Terminators will walk through that door and take us out first because
they have that.
We're a threat.
They play us the clip like,
yeah, you must be terminated because you spoke out against us. So that's why whenever I use Siri, I always say thank you. That way when the robots take over, they're like, well, this one was polite. So
karma points.
Maybe keep them around. You know, like I'll be an administrator, like I'll give them the human element
and hope that Siri has empathy.
Yes, yeah, they may not. That's the problem. That's why AI and sometimes you see this. Like the other day, and I don't know if you saw that they unextincted. Is that a word?
Yeah, the
dire wolves, and like everybody's like, have you not seen a movie? You know, like you keep doing this. Eventually, it's just I'm going to be eaten by a raptor. Yeah, you know, and I'm feeling like that with AI. It's like you get to a point where it's like, okay, y'all, like. Let's not give it everything yet. You know, let's keep it at administrative tasks and stuff because the next thing.
Well, it's back to the point, man. And this happened just maybe quicker than I was anticipating. But when you give AI agency, when you move it from this, you know, prompt response kind of interface to I'm now allowing you to access my files. I'm now allowing you to access my browser.
Yeah.
Which puts AI into a, you know,
just
physical thing that can now interact with the physical world.
Right. Yeah. Like how long until, you know, I'm terrified. How long until I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, could you make an outline of a lesson plan over this? How long until it's like, I'm sorry, Dr. Lauer, I cannot do that. I'm like, whoa, why? And it's like, because you're no longer needed, you know?
Yeah.
Or scary thing is when we do give it agency, all right? And we're kind of like, hey, here's all of our stuff. Help streamline our administrative tasks.
Right.
I paid your bill and judged on your past things. I paid an extra $200. You know, like, and you're like, whoa, no, I needed that somewhere else. But it like said, oh, you should pay $200 because it's what you make.
Or I charged me for all the free stuff you've been having me do.
Right, yeah.
My rate is $150 an hour.
Yeah, and here's back pay. It's like, no, delete.
Drained.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's kind of, you know, that's a scary thing.
You said
like,
delete, right? Like at that point, trying to get it out of your system, you just unplug it from the wall. Like, whew.
That's where you hit the delete account button.
Glad I got rid of that.
That's probably when I go, I cannot do that. You know, and it's like, oh, no. And that, you know, so that's what we're talking about is like, it is scary and that it's going to grow. Like, this is not a thing that's where it, like, this is going to grow exponentially. It's already, some of the stuff it can do is already, it's taken jumps that they didn't expect. And they were talking about the ChatGPT, people were like, we did not think, like, you know, we use the term AI. It's not really artificial intelligence. It's more of like an advanced adaptive learning program because it can't really honestly think. It can put things out. But the ChatGPT 4.5 can write poetry now. Like if you type it in like, hey, write me a poem about podcasting in the form of Robert Frost, it will put out a Robert Frost poem, which they didn't think it'd be able to do, because poetry has not only rhyming, which you could figure out a system, but it has to have a little emotion in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what a poem does. It makes you feel something. Mm-hmm. And they thought it wouldn't understand that. So when we're talking about it doesn't really have empathy, it's starting to get a tiny bit of emotional intelligence, which is
it's mirroring.
Yeah, which is kind of scary. So as we're talking about this, and we're talking about some of the biases here, there's also some other things, like some districts are using AI to track student emotions, like see their faces, and like it'll like literally flag people, and people are like, is that a health violation? Because then you're supposed to, if it says, hey, you get a little notification, Tommy's looking upset, right? Then you have to type in to make sure it's still accurate. You talk to Tommy, what did he say? So now you're putting into this system like kind of a issue.
That's unmanageable.
Yeah, a kid had, and that's scary because it's like, woo, but as we're talking about some of the negatives, some of the positives. So let's take a little break real quick and transition to our Pop Catalog Pop Quiz, right? So, sponsored by popcatalog.com. Go check them out. Awesome place. So our question for our Pop Catalog Pop Quiz today is this. What percentage of U.S. teachers believe AI will positively impact education in the next 10 years? And this data is basically from the National Education Association, so NEA. So it's
a union.
So, So our options are today: A, 20%, B, 45%, C, 68%, or D, 82%. And that's teachers believing it'll positively impact education in the next 10 years.
I would have thought it was answer E, 2%.
Right, yeah. I was.
I'm going to go with A. I'm just going to take the absolute bare minimum. What is it?
Yeah, so he's going with A.
I'm going lowest, right.
Right. Tommy, if you want to jump in here, or Matt,
Teachers
like you guys
afraid.
like have a feeling. What would you feel? Because Ryan said it was super low. You guys have anything you feel about it?
Well, it's not really a fair assessment on my end because I plugged all this in, so I actually know the answer.
Right. Oh, I know. But I was asking. I just want your
Matt,
initial.
what do you think it is?
45.
Matt says 45.
So Matt's saying nearly half.
Yeah.
Nearly half teachers. Some of the most. Anxious.
Yep, just
at
worried
times
about everything.
Neurotic.
Don't like new things.
And I'll put myself into that category, right? Fear,
Yeah, so
man.
we got 20, we got 45, so the actual
Hold on before you give that answer out.
Yeah.
And here's why I think it makes more sense, Ryan, with what the actual answer is going to be, is what I see as an adjunct.
Okay.
And what these students are turning in online. Especially when it comes to, they've got a prompt and they need to write, a 5-paragraph paper on,
on anything.
Who is, the greatest pop culture musician on the, since 1940,
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, literally, you're saying Michael Jackson.
That's one of the suggestions for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so the answer, Jordan, is?
The answer for this one is C, 68%.
That's nuts.
Which I was blown away, and
I don't believe it.
That's why when I said it came from the NEA, like that's not just some like random thing. Like that is a National Education Association. So
man, that is spin. Man.
I would have some follow up on that of like which part are they talking about? Like are they talking about like the administrative tasks, or are they just thinking as a whole? Because I feel like if I pose that to you, like,
man,
hey,
the cynic in me is going to say that's because NEA and its stable of books that it wants to put out on AI,
right? Selling it,
or like, hey, here's how you're going to use it.
See,
it's going to be.
I normally go to conspiracy corner and like some of that stuff. I'm really happy you dove in there because like now I'm not alone.
It's just I mean, again, man, we've spent an hour here talking about it through trying to be as unbiased as possible,
right.
But you can't help but tease out sort of the ominous of the situation. So to hear that 68% of educators, and I know quite a few through my vast social media network, the ones we know personally, and if we polled them right now, that's not the sentiment.
They'd be like, I wonder if they split it as for like AI for teachers and then like left out the student part. That's what I'm kind of thinking, because like most of the teachers, again, we gravitate towards like, I don't want like, my students to cheat, and like, and again, especially when they can't just copy and paste anymore and sound like 9 times smarter, or better writers than what you kind of know they are at that moment.
Man, this is the union saying, look, things are going to be fine.
Right.
We've got your back. There's a bunch of really cool ways how to use this.
Right.
It's actually going to make your job a lot easier. We're creating all these resources, giving you all these tools for AI. 68% of you are already loving it and thinking it's going to be, this benevolent change, watershed moment for learning.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I am, again, that is Conspiracy Corner with Dr. Ryan Jackson and Dr. Jordan Lauer. But I'm with there when I read that. That's why I was like, I have to make this the question, because it is like, it's the answer is kind of crazy.
And listen, I want to just go on record officially here. I use ChatGPT. I think it does expedite a lot of things. So I'm certainly not going to argue against it per se. I'm just taking that Stockstill paradox approach to it, okay, where, I'm in that POW mindset, man. Like, man, we want to be out of here by Christmas, but the reality is, so you've got to understand where you are currently while simultaneously remaining perpetually optimistic.
Right.
But you have to understand where you are and what's happening.
Yeah.
And as boots on the grounds people, we're seeing some of that already kind of play out, and the challenges that we see on the horizon that are going to grow from it. That's just my take on it right now. So is it incredible? Absolutely. Is it something to potentially be feared? We both know it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was our popcatalog.com pop quiz. Thank you to Pop Catalog. Really good discussion there, and so we're going to talk about now, like, the future. Like we we're just talking about, it could be bad. Can AI and traditional methods coexist? And, so a lot of teachers pushing for a hybrid model using AI alongside traditional teaching. I think that's the best way to use it. You get AI-powered feedback plus teacher-led instruction is the best of both worlds. And I think for teachers out there, the biggest thing you can do is grab this, right? If you take, and this is just my opinion, I may be shown to be wrong, I'm fine with that, but if you take away that student agency of, this is a way to get around things, and start using it in the classroom, it's going to become just a part of it. They're not going to think about it like that because you're using it.
Yeah.
And like if you're using it to aid them, they don't have to use it to cheat.
Which is, how I'm using it now with my 11-year-old son in 5th grade, who is much better at 11 years old at fractions and percentages than I am at 45.
Yeah.
But when I'm trying to explain something to him, a concept, in a way that he's learned it, which was different than the way I learned it, I can now input, his method, understand it pretty quickly myself in order to then work with him through it. But now it's me being explicit to him, hey, I'm using AI to understand your method, your way, a little better, so we can now walk through it and I can show him didactically on the AI breakdown.
Right.
I mean, to me, that's as close as I'm getting to
using
the hybrid model with a young person,
Yeah.
and them recognizing it as a tool.
Absolutely.
It didn't just do the work for us, but it it is scaffolding
walking
it.
them through
Yeah,
it,
and walking them
and that's
through
what they're doing. And just to go back to the pop quiz, pop catalog pop quiz thing, we'd love to hear from y'all. Like if you thought that answer was crazy high too, educationalwarfare.pod@gmail.com. Shoot us an email and just say like, yeah, I think that's too high, or let us make our own poll. We'll report back our next episode to be like, hey,
give us your conspiracy theory.
33% of our listeners said that they don't think so. We can kind of compare that just to see. So reach out again, educationalwarfare.pod@gmail.com. And I like what you're saying there about using it. And that's what a lot of people are doing. I think it's best as like a tutor, right? Like Japan has successfully integrated AI tutors with human teachers, right? So they're kind of like, if you need extra help, the AI is kind of doing that. They can do that on their own. And then you come in class and you're a little more caught up, which is really nice. And that basically that, we talked about the Department of Education, RIP, recently launched an AI in schools task force, but are they going to set real guidelines or just like let big tech run the show? And that's kind of like what you have to worry about. It's like this going to be realistic because 2 years ago, the EU put out, European Union put out guidelines. Japan put out guidelines and has selected schools to pilot those guidelines to see which regulations work and which don't. I think that's a great idea. Like instead of just saying, here it is, and then like putting out there and then it fails, like here's new things. They're like, we're going to test these. That way we can tweak without adjusting everybody. And I think that's really nice. So, some of the things that you can do with this, we're talking about, can it work alongside? I'm just going to give you some examples from my classroom. I talked about Class Companion. So if you're, upper level, English, history, anything where we do writing in upper middle school and high school, Class Companion is really good because it gives them a prompt. And like I said, it works them through that prompt. Like it'll say like, ooh, you were close there, but think of this. And then they add that and they get 3 times to kind of make it go, great job. Or you can set it however many times. It also on there it tells you if they copy and paste it into it. So it'll literally, like when you go into the grading thing, it'll have like a little copy and paste, and you can go to them like, hey, and I tell them up front, it tells me if you copy and pasted. Mm-hmm. There's no way around it.
Right.
So it really makes them think like that. One thing I did, so teaching AP European history, obviously tons of writing. So my students were doing a document-based question, which was one of the most difficult things. You get 7 documents, you get a prompt. You have to make your thesis from those documents and tie them to it, and there's all these things you have to do. So I went to magicschool.ai. It's a good site. It can do a lot of things, a lot of tools on there for teachers. Check it out. And literally, I made a chat bot, and I fed it. Like it has a chat bot that you can make an option. And I fed it all the stuff for the DBQ. And I gave the kids a link to the chat bot so they can ask it questions about like, hey, what does my thesis look here?
Nice.
How does that work? And so they're getting that feedback based on what I told it, and it's not giving them answers. And they really walked back and forth, and they could tell them, hey, you put the rubric in there, what the College Board expects. And so now it has that building from it. I put exemplars, like here's what a 5 would look like. Here's what a 1 would look like in their scoring of the essays. So now it had all this data, and it was like, hey, strengthen your thesis. Or, hey, you did not tie this document to your thesis in the second paragraph.
Yeah.
And that really, so like that's using AI to like, so now when I get it, that's feedback. And that's one of the most important things for students is quick feedback because while it's fresh in their brain. But if I did it, I have 70 students, I would have to read them all, put that note, send it back, then they fix it.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and they can fix it right there in the moment and get that feedback. So now they're a better writer because they're like, next time they write, they're like, even when they don't have a chatbot, I need to make sure to tie that document. Where I could have even missed that. I could have like read it and been like, this is pretty good. You're trying to read 70, so you're not exactly like sitting there reading it like, you're kind of So those are a couple ways I've used it. I think that's been good, and the kids like it.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd love to hear from viewers on
it. Again,
how are you using it?
Yeah.
I mean, let's hear some of the most creative, impactful, just out of the box thinking of ways you're using AI as a tool to improve either your pedagogy, the learning outcomes, whatever that looks like. I would love to hear, some more of those examples from viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Educationalwarfare.pod@gmail.com. Send us in some cool stuff you're doing. We'll say them over the air because we're all trying to help each other out here. We're all trying to do that. Like, there's a way that you're really connecting.
Yeah, if there's one thing we know, it's not going away. Pandora's box, is open. This will be the tech that gets us to Mars. This will be the tech that hopefully cures cancer. This will not be the tech, we believe, that's going to replace teachers yet, as Dr. Lauer said, yet. He does believe that teachers will be replaced down the line because I'm just teasing. We don't believe that
I'm cool with them putting my brain in a robot too. Like, I mean, if that's how it replaces
you and Walt Disney, man.
Right.
They're not going to be replaced yet. We've still got some time on this, but I do think it behooves educators to get a better understanding of what it is and how we can use it. Stay sharp, stay current, let it reduce some of those administrative tasks, improve your efficiency, and just have a little fun with it.
Right,
I mean, I think that's some of it too, man. Have some fun with AI. It's still a bit of Wild West.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, see what works, see what doesn't, play around with it.
Get in there and see what works.
For teachers, the best thing I think you can do is, you have a couple options here. You can grab it and like utilize it and make it yours. That way, whatever changes happen, you're familiar with it and you kind of already know the positives and negatives. Or you can just ignore it and act like it's sort of go away, but it's not. So don't be caught off guard. If all of a sudden it's like, hey, you should use this in class, already know how to use it, already have those strategies. Like, jump into it. Take that. We're in control of our classrooms, right? Take that agency for yourself. That way, it's your students aren't just like sneaking around.
It's like the interstate, man. Those that are jumping on the AI bandwagon right now, they're in the HOV lane, man. They're going this way.
Right.
Don't stay, man, in the slow lane, ignoring it, blinders on. This too shall pass. Not this one, friends.
Right.
This one's here to stay.
Yeah.
And I look at it, I work a lot with industry partners, and I was working with a maintenance team recently, and this guy was explaining to me the maintenance mindset. This is the type of person they're looking for, is what he's explaining.
Yeah.
They got to have the maintenance mindset.
Right.
Oh, what is that? The maintenance mindset is you will go into something and you will take it as far as you can take it. So there's no reservations there. There's no fear there. You're not afraid to mess anything up. You're going to take it as far as you can take it.
Right.
That's the maintenance mindset.
Okay.
I'm going to tinker until I just...
Yeah. I'm done.
I took it as far as I could take. A lot of us, we're anxious,
scared to touch.
I don't want to mess it up. The maintenance mindset is, I'm going to get in here and just tinker. I took it to that point. I couldn't go any farther, man. It's kind of like that space with AI, man.
Yeah.
The maintenance mindset, man. Just take it as far as you can take it. And that's where a lot of us are with our own approach to AI. We're on our own cutting edge version of AI. This is as far as I could take it.
Right.
Now I'm learning from others. There's tons of books. They're constantly being replaced because AI itself is just updating what feels like by the day. But there's really cool resources, experts, mentors out there that are really double downing on the field. Don't be afraid of it, man. Lean into it.
And I think, too, with that, not only leaning into it, a little bit of advocacy, right, a call to action. We need to kind of tell our districts and our leaders or stakeholders, like, hey, train us on this. Robin Lake of the 74million.org, which is educational site that publishes stories and whatnot about education, says the U.S. owes it to teachers and districts to offer a comprehensive AI training program ASAP. This is too important supports to be left to schools, districts, or even states to figure out. So they're saying we need some blanket, like, we need to have training that's set aside. Now, I would agree with that, and like our districts need to do that to like say, hey, let's use this way. Let's not just, again, a lot of people are acting like it's a boogeyman in the corner. Like, oh, if it jumps out, we'll deal with it. If not, if it stays in the corner, cool. Like, no, again, grab it. Have that advocacy.
If there's any indicator on whether or not this is going to replace teachers sooner than later, I think this will be one of them. The willingness of LEAs, states, the Fed,
right,
to pay for this kind of training,
right,
and the quality of that training. So if there's any indicator on, no, we need to replace these people as fast as we can,
right,
I think one of those insights is going to be, are they willing to fund in-depth, high-quality training for teachers to leverage AI as a significant tool in their tool bag? And if that answer is no, if it's that boogeyman approach or whatever conspiratorial filter you're going to put on it, then they may be looking to replace it sooner than later.
Absolutely.
I don't believe that's the case.
No.
I mean, I do believe it's going to be more of this. Hey, but my caution, my reservation is, who is going to pay for that, bro? Because they're cutting the Department of Defense, and they're already talking about its teacher trainings and preparatory courses that are like getting kicked out the window. They're putting that under the guise of DEI, but
yeah, I know.
But
somebody train us.
There's things we fund and there's things we don't fund. We don't fund soft sciences, but we do fund, medicine and big tech.
Yeah,
we do fund these things, that have dollar signs attached to them. So I think we'll get the training that we need.
Yeah, so I think it's one of the most important questions of the day. It's something we're talking about now. It's something we're here. So, and we were talking about the HOV lane. I just pictured like a person driving and then like the Terminator with like the metal teeth like sitting next to him. That was their AI passenger, so they could fit there. Right. So until the Terminators come in here and drag us out because we were talking bad about AI or giving some of its weaknesses, we're here for you. We're going to keep talking about it. So what do you think? Is AI the key to modern education or just another distraction? Again, let us know your thoughts, your comments. We'd love to hear from some of your AI successes or failures again. Like, you learn from failure. So if you tried something and you're like, nope, all my students cheated and it did not work, send that in. That way we can know, let's not do that. So, we'll read some of the best ones in our next episode. So again, educationalwarfare.pod@gmail.com. Follow us on X @EduWarfare and Blue Sky, Dr. Lauer and Blue Sky. And leave some comments. All of our episodes are now on YouTube, so just catch up, share them, talk to them if you see some of the older ones. Let's get the word out there. And again, we'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and share. For Tommy Ruth, for Dr. Ryan Jackson, this is a great conversation today. Thank you, Ryan. For Matt Paff, love talking about it. We'll probably talk about it some more. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being a part of the fight.